She didn't leave me for him. She just stopped coming back to me. And somehow, that hurt worse. People think betrayal starts with a lie. But for me, it started with a missing coffee cup. My name's Simon. I'm 38. I was married to Julia for 9 years. We lived in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of Portland, where the fog hangs low in the mornings and the sidewalks always smell like wet pine. We had a routine, reliable, unremarkable. She taught middle school English. I worked in IT for a logistics firm downtown. No kids. A dog named Murphy, who somehow ended up sleeping in our bed more than either of us admitted. I used to think we were boring in a good way. The kind of boring that feels like safety. Then, one Monday morning, her travel mug was gone. It was this old silver one with a faded sticker from a college play she'd stage managed years ago. She used it every day, even though the lid leaked and it never quite stayed hot. I saw her looking for it. Not frantic, just puzzled. She checked the dishwasher, the sink, the passenger seat of her car. Then she just gave up, poured coffee into a paper cup, and left 10 minutes earlier than usual. That's when I felt it. The smallest tug in my gut. Like someone had flicked a thread inside me, and something shifted. I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to accuse her of lying about a mug. But the thing is, when you know someone for nearly a decade, you start to feel when the rhythm changes. It's not about the facts. It's about tone, posture. The way her voice didn't rise on the last syllable like it normally did when she said goodbye. The way she didn't pet Murphy before leaving. That week, more things went missing. A pair of shoes I'd bought her last Christmas. A scarf her sister gave her. And her keychain, one I'd carved for her back when I still believed in small gestures. She never mentioned any of it. Just quietly replaced things like she was molting out of her old life. Then came the meetings. She started staying late. Not often, not dramatically, but consistently. Always on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I didn't question it at first. Her school was undergoing some curriculum change, and she'd been asked to lead a committee. I was proud of her. Julia was the type who always stayed behind after parent-teacher conferences to clean up the snack table. But one night, she came home with a faint line of dirt across her neck. Like she'd been outside, in wind, maybe. Not the kind of grime you get from fluorescent lights and white bards. I kissed her cheek and asked how the meeting went. Exhausting, she said. We argued over digital tools for an hour. She poured herself a glass of wine and went to the bathroom. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at her boots. They were muddy. Not just wet, from walking trails, maybe. Wooded. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I thought she was cheating, but because I started to wonder what else she wasn't telling me. Julia wasn't the type to lie. She was the type to omit, to redirect, to forget. And that's the kind of dishonesty that doesn't blow up. It seeps in. The next week, I made her dinner. Her favorite, lemon pasta with thyme and roasted garlic. She barely touched it. Stomach's off, she said. Too many stress carbs lately. She smiled, touched my hand, and excused herself early. I sat at the table long after she'd gone upstairs, my fork still in my hand. The next morning, she left early again. No goodbye this time. I watched her car pull away through the living room window, the coffee in her hand steaming through the paper cup. Later that night, I took Murphy for a walk and decided to go the long way. The way that curved past the community garden near the elementary school. As we turned the corner, I saw a car I didn't recognize parked under the sycamores. Black Civic. Slightly dented bumper. Engine idling. Julia was inside it. I stopped walking. She was in the passenger seat, leaned in slightly. Her hand moved. She touched someone's arm. The man in the driver's seat had his head down, laughing. I didn't move. Didn't pull out my phone. Just stood in the half-shadow of a pine, with Murphy sniffing a patch of grass like nothing in the world had changed. When she got home an hour later, she brought leftover soup from school. Said her co-teacher had made too much and insisted she take some home. She smiled, kissed my head, and said, "You should come by next time. They'd love to meet you." I nodded, thanked her, ate the soup. I didn't ask who was in the car. I wasn't ready to hear her answer, because it wasn't just about who. It was about the ease of it. The way she looked in that moment. Peaceful, lit by someone else's dashboard. That's when I started noticing how little of her life I actually had access to. I didn't know her phone password anymore. She'd changed it a month ago, said it was a work requirement. She got texts at odd hours. Always turned the screen down. Never left her laptop open. At night, she fell asleep facing the other way. It's strange what you start to notice when your heart is trying to save itself. The way someone folds their towel differently. The silence after a joke you would have both laughed at. The smell of unfamiliar soap on their skin. And how, for the first time in years, they stop saying "we" when they talk about the future. The Civic started showing up on Thursdays. Always parked in the same spot. Near the bench with the peeling blue paint, the one the local kids used for skate tricks and late-night weed. I never saw who got out or who got in. I only ever saw Julia leave it, on foot, usually carrying nothing but her keys and a bag that looked too empty for a work meeting. I didn't follow her. I told myself I wouldn't be that guy. The tracker in the phone, password-guessing guy. The one who stakes out parking lots and checks mileage. I told myself I was better than that. That I still trusted her enough to believe that whatever this was, it hadn't crossed a line. But deep down, I knew I was lying. It wasn't just the car. It was how she smiled less in the mornings. How she'd started playing music while we ate dinner, old records, full of crackling jazz or moody folk singers. Music I didn't recognize. Songs she never used to like. She said it helped her decompress. I wanted to ask who introduced her to it. Instead, I nodded and poured her more wine. That Friday night, we went to her friend Dana's birthday. I watched her from across the room, how she navigated people with that soft magnetism of hers. She was still the same Julia everyone adored. But there was something different now. She was lighter, less careful with her words, more spontaneous with her laughter. Like she wasn't worried about being understood or misunderstood. It was the kind of freedom you get when you know someone else is waiting for you when the party ends. That night, she passed out early. Too much wine. I carried her upstairs, helped her out of her heels, tucked the blanket around her. Her phone was on the dresser. Charging. Unlocked. A rare moment. I stared at it for a long time. Then I picked it up. No missed calls. No open messages. Just a clean home screen. Too clean. I scrolled through her texts. Dana. Her sister. Her coworkers. Nothing strange. No Mark. No Alex. No names I didn't recognize. I checked her photos, nothing since December. Just our dog. A salad. The ocean from a trip last fall. That's when I realized. She had a second number. Or a second app. One of those disappearing message things. WhatsApp, Signal, whatever else people used when they didn't want to be found out. She wasn't hiding evidence. She was living above it. Parallel to it. She stirred as I put the phone down, mumbled something, then turned over. I didn't sleep. I watched the ceiling for hours, tracing the faint shadows the streetlights made across our bedroom wall. At one point, I thought about waking her. About whispering, I know. Just that. Nothing else. But I didn't. Because I didn't know what I wanted more, the truth or her denial. The next day, we went grocery shopping like nothing was wrong. She held my hand in the parking lot. We talked about meal prep and whether we still had cumin. In the checkout line, she made a joke about my bad memory. The cashier laughed. I laughed too. It felt rehearsed, like a scene from a life I was only half inhabiting. Back home, as we unpacked the bags, she pulled out a small potted plant I didn't remember grabbing. For your desk, she said. Thought it might help you feel less stuck. I stared at the little green thing in its clay pot. It was thoughtful. Sweet, even. but I couldn't stop wondering what she was trying to balance with that gesture. What guilt it was meant to soften. I said thank you, kissed her cheek, set the plant on the windowsill instead of my desk. That evening, she took a bath. I cleaned up dinner and found myself standing in front of the linen closet with the stupidest thought in my head. The silver travel mug was back, not in the front, tucked behind some folded towels. No coffee residue, just clean, dry, and perfectly still, like she hadn't needed it anymore. Like whatever it had meant, its absence, its return, was part of some code I couldn't crack. Sunday morning, I woke up before her. I made coffee, fed Murphy, and sat on the back porch. The cold bit at my hands, but I needed the distance. Needed to not hear her feet on the stairs or smell her shampoo or feel that false sense of calm she carried like perfume. I stared at the plant on the windowsill. What kind of person cheats and buys you a succulent? I remembered something my father once said after my mom left. He sat at the kitchen table, chain-smoking and staring at the place her coat used to hang. She didn't fall out of love, he said. She just started living somewhere I couldn't follow. At the time, I didn't get it. I thought love was either on or off, like a light switch. But now I understood. Julia wasn't in a secret relationship. She was in a secret world. One where I was just a postcard memory. Something you smile at, then tuck away. That night, I finally asked her. We were brushing our teeth, side by side. She was humming. I said, "Are you seeing someone?" She stopped, spit, looked at me in the mirror. What? My voice was calm. Too calm. I've noticed some things. I just need to know. She didn't get defensive. Didn't explode. She just stared. And then she did something that scared me more than any yes could have. She smiled. Of course not, she said. Then she turned off the light and walked into the bedroom. Just like that. Like my question hadn't even deserved a real answer. Let me know when you're ready for part 3. It's about to get colder, more precise, and much harder to come back from. You don't lose someone all at once. It happens in the pauses, in the silences between sentences. In the way they stop asking how your day was and start commenting on the weather instead. Julia didn't mention my question again. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek like usual. Same tight-lipped smile. Same, have a good one, as she grabbed her bag and slipped out the door. Like I hadn't accused her of the one thing that should have torn us apart. I sat at the kitchen table for an hour that day. Just staring. Not thinking. Not planning. Just trying to understand what kind of person hears that question and doesn't flinch. But that was the answer, wasn't it? She didn't flinch because she'd already rehearsed the lie. Already filed it under maintenance. Like brushing her teeth or setting the alarm. Just another task to keep the narrative running smoothly. It wasn't guilt that kept her quiet. It was comfort. She believed I wouldn't push. And she wasn't wrong. That week, I started keeping a journal. Nothing dramatic, just bullet points. Days. Times. Details I didn't want to forget. Tuesday, she came home in a different sweater than she left in. Thursday, she laughed at something on her phone, then cleared her screen when I walked in. Friday, she called me babe for the first time in weeks, right after I asked if she wanted to do something this weekend. I told myself I wasn't tracking her. I was tracking the decay. Trying to map the way love rots when one person stops watering it. That Friday night, she suggested we see a movie. It caught me off guard. A real suggestion. Not out of guilt. Not reactive. She said she just wanted to do something normal. I agreed, of course. Said yes too quickly. We went to some indie drama. Moody, slow, filled with long pauses and broken families. The kind of thing we used to love. But halfway through, I stopped watching the screen and started watching her. She didn't cry during the sad parts. She didn't reach for my hand. She didn't even lean toward me in the dark. Afterward, we went for a drink. She smiled more than usual. Talked about the film like it had moved her. Said something about how we're all just looking for connection. I nodded, sipping a drink I didn't want, wondering who she'd quoted that from. When we got home, she kissed me. Full on. Real. The kind that used to lead somewhere. I kissed her back. But I didn't go further, because something about it felt wrong. Like kissing a stranger wearing your wife's skin. Saturday morning, I watched her get dressed from the doorway of the bedroom. She was wearing jeans I hadn't seen before. A blouse that dipped just slightly lower than her usual work attire. I asked, "What are you up to today?" She shrugged. "Might run errands. Think I'll stop by the bookstore." Dana mentioned a reading happening downtown. I didn't press. Just said, "Sounds nice." She left around noon. At 12:42 p.m., I followed. I waited 15 minutes. Gave her a head start. Then took Murphy for a walk, looped back, grabbed my car, and started driving toward downtown. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't expecting to catch her red-handed. But something in me needed to know that I wasn't crazy. That the dread living in my chest had roots in something real. I parked 2 blocks from the bookstore she mentioned. Walked the perimeter. Checked the cafe next door. Nothing. It was only as I looped back toward my car that I saw her. Not across the street. Not in the crowd. But in the passenger seat of the black Civic. Same spot. Same lean-in posture. Same man. He looked older than I'd imagined. Not a hip coworker or charismatic PDA dad. Just ordinary. Corduroy jacket. Short beard. Kind face. The kind you trust by accident. She looked happy. Not in a big way. But relaxed. Like her body knew this space better than the one she shared with me. I didn't go to the car. Didn't shout her name or snap a photo. I just stood there, far enough away to be no one, and watched the shape of something I used to be part of. Watched her laugh. Nod. Watch him talk. She reached for the glove box and pulled something out, a book, I think. Held it in her lap. Opened it. They sat there reading together for a while. Eventually, they drove off. I didn't follow this time. I just went home. That night, she came in around 6 p.m. Bag of groceries in hand. Said the reading was SOSO, but that she bumped into an old student's mom, and they caught up over coffee. I asked what they talked about. She blinked, just for a second, then said, mostly school stuff. Her kid's doing great now. Honors program. I smiled. That's nice. She smiled back. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized she was smiling at a version of me I no longer recognized. The trusting version. The one who believed her, unconditionally. I didn't say anything else that night. Just helped her cook. Washed the dishes. Watched a show I wasn't really paying attention to. And when she fell asleep on the couch next to me, I looked at her, really looked, and saw a stranger wearing my wife's memories. Not because she'd stopped loving me, but because she was rewriting our history in real time, replacing it, moment by moment, with something else, something private, something I wasn't allowed to access. She was erasing the middle of our story while keeping the beginning and the end intact. So when she left, no one would question it. The moment I stopped trying to save us, I started paying attention. Not to her. I'd done that long enough. But to the details. The landscape. The architecture of a life quietly dismantling itself. It was almost beautiful in a sick way. Julia had built her second life like an artist builds a collage, small pieces stolen from everywhere else. A scarf she never wore around me. New wine glasses I'd never seen her use. A charger left plugged into an outlet in the guest room, even though neither of us used that space anymore. She wasn't sloppy. She was confident. And confidence, I realized, was a far more dangerous thing than deceit. I stopped asking questions. Stop trying to catch her in anything. That kind of chase is a trap. You think you're gathering evidence, but really you're just trying to buy yourself a reason to stay. So instead, I made an inventory. Not of proof. Of loss. What I'd already given up. What she'd already taken. Loss number 1. Her voice in the morning. She used to sing while making coffee, badly, softly, always out of tune. It had stopped months ago. I didn't know when. Lost number 2. Her handwriting. There used to be post-it notes everywhere. Grocery lists. Pick up dog food. Love you. Back by 6. Now, the fridge was bare. Everything was digital. Lost number 3. Her shoes. She started wearing flats I didn't recognize. Earth tones. Worn in. The kind you choose when you're walking somewhere often, and not always on pavement. I didn't confront her. Instead, I started preparing. I made copies of documents, bank accounts, mortgage, insurance. I went to a quiet little UPS store and got everything notarized without explanation. The guy at the desk didn't ask questions. He just handed me back the folder like it was any other Tuesday. At home, Julia made chicken with rosemary and told me about her coworker's failed engagement. She shook her head and said, "People give up too easily these days." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I nodded, took a bite, said, "Guess some people just stop trying." She didn't answer, didn't even look up. That night, I dreamed I was watching a house burn down from across the street. I didn't try to save anything. I just stood there with my hands in my pockets, waiting for the fire to reach the bedroom. The next day, I visited a lawyer, not to file, just to ask. She looked at me over her glasses and said, "You're early. Most people come in after they've exploded." "I'm not exploding," I said. "I'm just ready." She nodded, gave me a card, told me to keep it somewhere quiet. That night, Julia asked if I wanted to go away for a weekend. Said she found a good deal on a cabin near the coast. I said yes. Not because I wanted to go, but because I wanted to see what she'd do when she realized I wasn't resisting anymore. The next morning, she kissed me on the forehead and said, "Thank you for being patient with me lately. I've been kind of a mess." I said, "You've been distant." She paused. "I know, but that's all she said. Not sorry. Not an explanation. Just a quiet agreement that we were drifting and she wasn't swimming back." We left Friday afternoon. The drive was quiet, except for the sound of wind through the cracked window and Murphy panting in the back seat. She played a playlist I didn't recognize. Acoustic covers of old 80s songs. Pretty, but hollow. The cabin was nice. Too nice. Polished wood floors. Smell of pine and citrus and something faintly chemical, like someone had tried to cover up the memory of other people. We unpacked in silence. She opened wine. I lit a fire. We sat across from each other, separated by flickering orange light. At one point she said, "I'm glad we're here." I said, "Me too." And I almost meant it. That night, she undressed slowly, like she used to, when we were still in the part of our story where desire was the glue. She climbed into bed beside me, curled into my chest. Her skin was warm, her breath steady. But it wasn't love. It was maintenance. An act of survival dressed as affection. And I let her do it. Because sometimes, letting someone lie to you is the only way to understand how far they've gone. The next morning, she woke early. Said she wanted to walk the trail near the cliff. "Clear my head," she mumbled, already lacing her boots. I watched her through the window as she disappeared into the trees. And then I did something I never thought I would. I opened her bag. Not because I was suspicious, but because I already knew what I'd find. There it was. A second phone. Slim. Gray. Face down. I didn't unlock it. Didn't have to. The home screen lit up as I picked it up. One new message from May. That was all I needed. I put it back exactly where I found it. Zipped the bag. Sat at the table and waited. She returned 30 minutes later. Cheeks flushed, breathing slightly harder than the walk should have required. I asked, "See anything good?" She nodded. "Some deer tracks. A rabbit." I smiled. "Sounds peaceful." She smiled back. A little too easily. We made breakfast together. Eggs. Toast. Coffee. I didn't bring it up. Didn't tell her I knew. Because what she didn't realize was that I wasn't waiting for her to confess anymore. I was waiting for her to make her next move. And when she did, I'd be ready. We drove home from the cabin on Sunday afternoon. Neither of us said much. She stared out the window, thumb scrolling through something on her phone. Not the second one. That had stayed tucked in the lining of her bag, zipped up like a secret we were both pretending not to know. I didn't ask if she had a good time. She didn't ask if I was okay. It rained halfway through the drive, soft and rhythmic. I kept my hands on the wheel, eyes on the wet blur of trees sliding past. We stopped once for gas. She bought coffee. Didn't get my usual order. Didn't ask. Just handed me whatever she grabbed without looking. That was the moment I knew. It wasn't that she loved him. It was that I didn't matter anymore. When we got home, Murphy ran in first like always, circling the living room in dizzy loops. I watched her set her bag down, check her phone, then walk into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't just spent 48 hours pretending not to be enemies. I stood in the hallway and said it. I know about the other phone. She froze. Didn't turn around. Didn't gasp or deny. Just stood there, back to me, motionless. The silence stretched until it wasn't silence anymore. It was weight. Something with teeth. Finally, she said, "Okay." That was it. Not "I'm sorry." Not "let me explain." Just "okay." I stepped into the kitchen. My voice was steady. Too steady. "How long?" She exhaled through her nose. "Does it matter?" "Don't insult me," I said. She turned then, slowly. Met my eyes. She didn't look scared. Just exhausted. Like someone who'd been hoping to avoid this scene for as long as possible and now just wanted it over with. 7 months, she said. Give or take. I nodded. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't in shock anymore. I was in inventory mode again. 7 months meant it started before our anniversary trip, before the school committee, before the new mug went missing. How did it start? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, he was apparent. From school. We started talking at conferences. It was harmless. Until it wasn't, I said. She looked down. Until it wasn't. I leaned against the counter. My voice dropped, almost a whisper. Did you ever plan to tell me? She blinked hard, like she wasn't ready for that question. No, she said. I didn't want to be the one who ended this. My stomach twisted. So you wanted me to find out. You wanted me to walk away so you wouldn't have to say the words. She didn't deny it. I didn't know how to leave, she said. You never did anything wrong. That stung more than any affair ever could. Because what she was really saying was, you were good, and I still chose someone else. I stepped past her, poured water from the sink just to have something to do with my hands. She watched me, arms folded like she was cold, or bracing for something. But I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't giving her the performance she'd built this exit around. You wanted me to hate you, I said quietly. She nodded. I set the glass down. I don't. She flinched. Just slightly. I'm not staying, I added. But I don't hate you. Her eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. I thought that would make it easier. No, I said. You thought that would make you feel less guilty. A long pause. Then I asked the question I never thought I'd ask, not because I wanted the answer, but because I needed the shape of it. Do you love him? She opened her mouth, closed it, thought for a long time. I don't know, she said. Sometimes I think I just love the version of me I get to be around him. I nodded slowly. Then you never loved me. Not really. I did, she whispered. I swear I did. I shook my head. No. You loved what I gave you. The life. The stability. The safety. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, voice cracking. I turned to leave the room. She followed. Simon. I stopped in the hallway. I packed a bag before we left. I'll be gone tonight. She looked like she'd been punched. But we haven't even. There's nothing left to talk about. That was the truth. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't leave a scar, but a hollow. I slept on the couch that night. Not because I was locked out of the bedroom, but because I couldn't bring myself to lie down next to the echo of what we used to be. In the dark, Murphy lay beside me, sensing something, maybe everything. Julia didn't come down. No apology note. No final plea. Just silence. At 5:07 a.m., I left. I didn't leave a note either. She already knew everything I would have said. The apartment was small, sparse. 2 rooms, a window that faced an alley, and a mattress that groaned every time I moved. But it was mine. The air didn't smell like her perfume. The floors didn't echo with the sound of her bare feet. It was just stillness and space. In silence I didn't have to interpret. The first week passed like fog. I worked, ate, slept, woke up to the sound of Murphy whining at the door, confused but loyal. He followed me from room to room like he was still waiting for Julia to walk in and remind him what normal looked like. She didn't call. She didn't text. Not on the first day. Not on the 5th. Not when I picked up the last of my things from the house and left my keys on the table. There was a folded envelope by the door with my name on it. I didn't open it. If she couldn't say it out loud, I didn't need to hear it. The people closest to us started to notice. Friends. Family. Dana called once, feigning surprise. I haven't seen you around. Everything okay? I told her the truth. She cheated. Silence on the other end. Then a soft, I'm sorry. I said, yeah, me too. I didn't tell anyone else. Didn't publish the story. No Instagram captions. No dramatic confessions. Just quiet withdrawal. People figured it out eventually. Most didn't ask questions. The ones who did got the same line. We're not together anymore. It wasn't working. That was enough. Sometimes, when I'm walking Murphy or driving home from work, I wonder where she is. Not physically. Emotionally. Is she with him? Did he stay? Did he become her next routine? Or was he just a temporary scaffolding for the version of herself she couldn't find with me? I don't care. Not in the way people mean when they say it. I don't want her back. But I still feel the shape of her absence, like a scar you run your fingers over without thinking. It's not pain. It's muscle memory. A month after I moved out, I ran into her sister at the grocery store. She asked how I was holding up. I said I was okay. She misses you, she said, her voice cautious. I didn't answer, because I didn't want to know what part of me she missed. The safety? The quiet? The man who never asked too many questions? Missing someone isn't the same as loving them. And loving someone isn't the same as choosing them. I didn't cry much. That surprised me. I kept waiting for the collapse. The breakdown. But grief doesn't always announce itself like that. Sometimes it just changes your posture, slows your footsteps, makes you forget the names of songs you used to know by heart. I did see her once. Weeks later, at a coffee shop we used to go to. She didn't see me. She was sitting alone by the window, a book open, her face unreadable. She looked fine, not happy, not wrecked, just living. And I realized then, she'd moved on long before I ever left. I stepped back outside before she could notice me, walked a few blocks, then sat on a bench with Murphy and watched the world go by. Sometimes I think about what I could have done differently. Maybe I could have fought harder. Maybe I could have asked better questions. Maybe I should have loved her louder or quieter or in some other unknowable way. But love isn't a test you pass by effort alone. It's a contract you both have to keep signing. She stopped signing it. I just didn't notice the ink had dried up. Now, I'm rebuilding. Slowly. New furniture. A therapist I don't completely hate. I take Murphy on longer walks. I talk to my sister more. I've started cooking again, badly but consistently. And I've learned something I wish I didn't have to learn this way. The worst betrayals don't come from strangers or enemies. They come from the people who knew where your soft spots were and touched them anyway. And the hardest part isn't losing them. It's unlearning the version of yourself you became for them. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.